Alright, so I know it's been a minute since I've been on here to do anything, and I said I was going to do a bunch of videos of the build up and everything, but it's so hard to do that. Like when I come home from work and everything, I just want to get stuff done. It's hard to take time to, even stop and take a video or something, and it just takes so much time. So I apologize for that, for saying I would do it and I didn't. But just been trying to make progress. My goal was to get it back on the road this year, and fingers crossed so far it's looking pretty good. Obviously, the last video of it running is a big step. So anyway, so I was just gonna do a quick walkthrough of kind of some of the things that are different this time and some of the things that are the same, just to kind of go over that. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna get walking around it. Do a quick just walk around here, kind of the basics, overview of everything, where it's at. Alright, that's just a quick little walk around. So some of the things that are different this time, some of it's going to be hard to see, but you can see down in here the brake proportioning valve and that line running into the wheel well. So what I've done is basically made my own line routing, so it's even more difficult to see, but the back lines basically run to the firewall. So the line doesn't go under the cross member like it used to before. It goes into the car. I'll show you where it goes into the car. So you can see right here, that bottom line is the clutch line running inside the car. The top line is the brake line, the right brake that goes into the car. That's the clutch line where it actually goes back and then goes back forward. So it actually runs to here. Then there's a flex line inside that goes back forward and meets up with the transmission. So my goal is before I had the line running up high, is to try and get it running slowly down from the master cylinder instead of having to go down and back up and everything like that. I think I was having issues with some problems with it having to run back up again. So the lines all run down for the clutch. So I'll show you the other side for the right brake. So you can see there's the other line, other side of the line, the hard line for the right brake. It goes over the tunnel and then comes back out. This part's gonna be almost impossible to see, but way back in there you can see a line. That line runs back behind the box on the bottom, the AC box, and then runs out into the wheel well. So it's completely different routing. So that routing allows me to, I do not have to disconnect any of the brake lines to either pull the engine or pull the cross member or any of the suspension or any of that, I can leave it all connected. Obviously, I got to pull it from the calipers, you know, if I needed to. But so that's that part. So next, I'll climb under the car. All right, that line that you see there in the top of the tunnel runs all the way to the front. Runs all the way back. There it is right here at this juncture, and there is a flex line right here that runs back up into the car. I slide out the other side. And that's where it goes back into the car, and then goes to the left wheel well, and it runs across the other side to the right wheel well, and then that line runs out right there. Nice clean shot right to the brake. So that's super sweet. So it no longer runs, it used to run low in the left side of the tunnel, like underneath the car right through here. Well, that runs right next to the exhaust, so it gets super hot right now. So now it runs on the upper side of the tunnel, which is still going to get a little hot from the transmission, I guess, but it's better than being near the exhaust, in my opinion. So now it's going to run the upper side of the tunnel, then run down, and then back up into the back. So the goal was to get everything away from the heat. Like the right line used to run under the engine and then back up the other side. So it was like right next to the oil pan, or go by the exhaust. Same thing with all the other lines. They run down the side of the tunnel, the rear line, and it would just get real close to the exhaust and get real hot back there to eliminate heat soak issues with that. And it just cleaned up. Sorry about my finger. It just cleaned up all this routing in here. You can see where they go through the firewall in there. Let's back out of here. All right, so that's one thing that's different this time with the car. I also modified this strut tower. You can see right here, there's like a little, it's very difficult to see, but there's a little angle cut in it. Usually it's round like this side. I cut a little angle in it as far as I could I still have clearance for the caster adjustment, and there's a plate on the inside to support it so that I can get maximum camber with the Willwood master cylinder in there. Usually that Willwood limits the amount of negative camber you can get in the car. I'll probably not run it as much as it has. I've got quite a bit in it now, but at least it gives me the option. You can kind of see on the other side how it should look without the notch in it. So there's that. The strut brace is new. This is a lot smaller gauge material, bolts. This whole strut brace is all chrome moly, whole thing. So it's a ton lighter than it was before. And I made a little notch here for the intake, and hopefully that's going to clear. If I do a different intake on it, that'll clear that intake too. So there's that. You can see these lines right here. Some of these are for the lower ones are for the lights. Upper ones are the power wires to go to my fuse block, which is still not the cleanest thing in the world, but it's up here. These are ECU incoming for each fan. So it provides a ground signal for each one. It goes to the relay, and then the other one on each side goes inside to a manual switch, so I can turn each fan on individually from there. Those lines run down. They used to run through here, down underneath the radiator, across the car, and back up the other side. So I made this upper steering brace that ties in the frame and the upper steering box with studs. It runs, those power lines run across the top of it now over here, so they're much easier to access. It gave me a better situation for the alternator cable, which is right there, and then also the starter cable, which you can see is 8L to the triangle brace right there, and everything runs over to this junction point right here. So you've got starter, alternator, and all my other power wires for stuff like the interior power, fan power. This is the main 1/0 line that runs through. It is 8L clamped there. It's the main harness, 8L clamped all the way through here to secure that. Run it through the fender. I custom made this 8L clamp to make it oval out of stainless steel. These are wires that run through for various stuff inside the car, like the drive-by wire, different things like that. And then I got a bulkhead connector. It's all heat shrinked. These are reusable connectors. I'm not going to open that up. And that runs to the inside, and that cable runs all the way down. This will get cleaned up a little bit to circuit breaker, to the box with grommets. There's going to be a grommet on this side. They only have one in stock. To these battery connectors. Something new that I did this time is I used to run the ground wire to the old seatbelt mount, which I still do, but you can see now I have a bolt that runs from the outside in. So basically I've made a stud for it, so it's a much better secure connection there. On here on the side of the battery box, you can see this is the fuel pump relay, fuel pump fuse, wire going inside with a grommet. These are all the wires that go back. I've got it running to a bulkhead connector for the it's a Deutsch bulkhead connector, runs there, and you can see the wires come from the factory direction. Here's a ground for the fuel pump, or for the fuel sending unit. It's got to be a separate ground from the wires for the relay and the fuel pump. So there's that, and there's the fuel pump access panel right there. All done. Just put a seal on that this morning, and here you can see the other fuel line running under the battery box across. So I think what I'm going to do in this back area, I think I'm going to run the carpet up to here, and I think I'm going to do a bed liner type material in this area, and then run the carpet down in the back so that all this will be exposed here, but it'll be black like everything else, because it was going to be a pain in the neck to run that carpet around all that stuff with the brake lines in there. So at least it'll kind of blend in there. So got the shifter, custom shifter mount, the fire boot on it, HVAC. I've got OBD2, and then this is the port for the wideband to plug into the HP tuners. This is the fan switch, so I can manually run the fans if I want to. If I'm at an event, usually I turn a fan on manually, whichever one's not running. This right here is my controller for the drive-by wire, and then it runs to all these connectors that run through the side that we saw before. So we got that. This floorboard has been replaced from this point forward. That whole floorboard is new. There's been a lot of rust repair happen up in here in the rocker. Not a lot, a little bit of rust repair in the rocker. Walk around the other side. This floorboard was done obviously to where the seam sealer is. It ran all the way across, all the way to the front. I did that whole board. And along with that, the seat rails were rusted in this location on the original floorboard, so I made my own seat rails welded to the floor. Obviously took a lot of time to center this seat. Had to move it over to the right just a little bit and get it all squared up and everything using a laser and lining that laser up. I used the steering column as a center and the brake pedal as a center. Actually, I didn't use the brake pedal, I'm sorry. I used the, let me zoom in. See where the steering column mounts. I used those holes as sort of a center and then ran that through the center of the steering column. And then obviously the laser goes through the seat mount bracket. So that got that driver's seat as square as I could get it. I've got I think it's the V's covers. This is for the cowl, for the just for the cowl vent. Their OE ones are plastic and they get all tore up. Mine are tore up like crazy, so this is a lot cleaner. Had this powder coated. A lot of good powder coating. For the fans, since the wires run across the top now, I rerouted the fan wires across the top of the fans, so it cleans that up a lot. Obviously there's Deutsch connectors and they're reversed, so you can't mix up the left and right sides. Made a ground stud for the fans and for all the lights and everything. Trying to think of what else is new. Oh, underneath. Let me slide back underneath again. Might get a little shaky here for a second. There's all the rear suspension stuff. This is just standard lower adjustable panhard bar setup from UMI. It's pretty standard. Torque arm up the fuel line. Rerouted the fuel line. This is the normal routing where it did run before, but I ran it into this frame rail and back out the other side before, and I really didn't want to have to drill into the frame rail. So I also rerouted this fuel line. Really can't see it. It runs over the same place that the brake line runs, above the transmission. And then so something else that's new is the cross member. I ran the Holley cross member this time to get the mount off the transmission. Something I found out when I was installing all this before and mocking it up is this torque arm had been rubbing, like up in the front here, it'd been rubbing pretty hard on the floor pan. So I took a little extra time and massaged with a hammer the floor pan out so that it won't be touching that. Did the same thing back here, clearance a little bit back here because it had been touching back here. Just that's a common thing, clearance all that. And yes, this line does clear at full droop. It just clears on the bump stops, which it will probably never be at that point. You got your clutch slave cylinder bleed line running through, and then you got the this is all new. Well, these parts of it up to here and here is all my original exhaust system, but everything from here back, what this is a fifth gen Camaro, fifth or sixth gen, I can't remember, X pipe. Just a standard X pipe from that. It's really not modified at all. I used that as a base for the True Dual, made all my own pipes up here to tie it in, tucked it up as tight as I could. Back here, these are basically two 2.5 inch, I think it's Dynamax, over the rear axle pipes, and just tied those in to the X pipe the fifth or sixth gen come out X pipe, and then run that over the rear axle with got bang clamps here for all that, so it can be removed. Runs over the rear axle. There's a little bolt right here with two tabs that locates these two rear tailpipes. Obviously another clamp, and then runs back to the mufflers. These are paradox mufflers. Runs across the other side. Dual exhaust. This will have a heat shield on it. I'll put a heat blanket material on the fuel tank as well. So these mufflers are supposed to help with resonance, so hopefully it'll be a little less loud on the inside. They're actually not as loud as I thought they were going to be because there's not a lot of baffling in them, but they have these little tuning forks inside. You can see they're supposed to help with the resonance. So we'll see how they do. I've still got to put all the rear crash bar on, the bumper on to make my tips. That's why I didn't paint any of this, the mufflers. So I got to figure out that. I tucked them up so tight, the mufflers, that I forgot about the crash bar. It comes out and comes down a little bit, so it gives me not a lot of room for the exhaust tips. So that's something I got to figure out here soon. This original car was a Firebird, and apparently Firebirds have a lot more lighting in the back for whatever reason. So this harness is actually from the convertible. I spliced it all in through here, offset all the splices, clean up all the connectors and everything. So that's nice and neat. Swapped over the black unlock key. Got the hatch pull down motor. It's rebuilt. So that's nice. Haven't done the hatch yet. I've got the hatch surrounds right here. Those got powder coated the other day. I've got the optic armor rear hatch, 3/16 thick. So I need to clean up this rear hatch panel so I can start fitting the optic armor hatch. Has no holes in it, so I gotta drill all the holes. That's a little scary, but my idea is to, on the original glass, is to put paper on the original glass, tape it to the glass, cut the perimeter of it so that it matches the glass perfectly, mark all the holes in the paper. There'll be holes back here, and then be some holes up here, and then transfer that to the optic armor glass so I can get those holes in the right spot, because I'm a little nervous about those holes. These pieces actually help. You can kind of see how they go here. Kind of go like that. This would be the back of the car here. They go across the front. Got the little arc, and they screw into that panel back here, and then they line up with each other back up here. So got that. So kind of, there's an overall shot of the side of it. You can't really see, I redid the weight jacks. So instead of adjusting the weight jacks from the inside of the car, I now adjust the weight jacks from underneath the car. It's very similar to a lot of aftermarket setups. So a little more difficult to, in theory, because you gotta underneath the car to adjust it, but I have to get on the car to adjust the rear. But I didn't have to cut through the frame to do it this way, so that's a lot nicer. So let's see what else. I know what a lot of people are probably thinking too, why you have the battery inside the car. It is a sealed battery, so there's no issue there. It's a vented box. It is completely sealed. Obviously you got grommets on everything. And then the rules and CAM class refer to the basic safety rules, which also state that the box can be, the battery can be relocated as long as it's in a sealed container. It doesn't specify where you can specifically relocate it. So I relocated it here. A lot of people do it in the back, which is really no difference than where I have it, because it's still inside the car, whether you have it in the back or the front, because there's no firewall or rear bulkhead in this car to seal it off. So the reason I put it here is because I need the weight on the right side of the car, and I didn't want to put the weight behind the rear tires. I want to put the weight in front of the rear tires, but still further back in the car, so I get less weight behind the rear tires for the pendulum effect. So I'll get more weight inside between, I hate this pole, get more weight between this axle and this axle. Between those 2 points is the goal, to get most of the weight in this center section, and less weight back here and less weight up here. Eventually when I put my splitter frame on it, my goal eventually, now that I've got into TIG welding, is to remake this whole splitter frame at a thinner chromoly. So that'll save a lot of weight in the front of the car, lighten up that splitter frame, get less weight off the noses. I've done a lot to save weight on the front with the chromoly strut brace on the car, and the thinner steel here, and lighter hardware, things like that. And there's a lot of miscellaneous little things I've done to save weight also, like the battery box used to be here, and now it's a thin piece of sheet metal covering this whole area. Same thing on the other side, where all my my overflow below this is a thin piece of sheet metal instead of the original piece, which those were very heavy to hold the battery. So that's lighter. I made my clutch master cylinder bracket out of aluminum, so that saves some weight. There's a lot of, I can't remember them all right now. It's a lot of miscellaneous things that I've done on it to lighten up weight in little places here and there. Oh, the front weight jacks are lighter than it was before, because I had to cut this hole in the bottom of the control arm to get the socket through. So I cut that as big as I could, and so I can get the socket in there, and that actually lowered the weight of the control arm. Oh, that was another thing that's different. So I'm now running rod ends, heavy duty rod ends on the front suspension. I was running like a roto joint, and I was having a heck of a time with those roto joints. I don't think they were necessarily designed to take the side force that a front suspension takes in any of these cars. So I converted all that to rod ends, make those a lot stronger. They should last a lot longer, not have as many issues. I had those just practically come apart. Luckily, nothing got hurt on the car or myself or anything. So I reused the OE harness that came with the original car because it was unmolested, and I modified that myself to match up with all the LS swap stuff and all my other custom things. And I routed it. This time I routed it the OE routing, which is good. It's clean, but it's not as easy to access. But luckily, all my wiring so far has been good. I haven't had any issues, but everything routes the OE routing and everything. So that's a lot cleaner. I'm trying to think. It's still a long way to go. Obviously, I've got to paint the doors. I got to repaint all the ground effects. The front fenders will be easy. I got to repaint the rear bumper because of the rear end collision in the other car. And then obviously I got to work on the fiberglass front end, which is sitting here, which I haven't done anything to from the other car, just a little bit there on the top. So I'll have to match that up with this car. So I'll have to do that eventually. Trying to think. I think that's probably about it. I'm about to put the wheels and tires on it, put it on the wheel crib so it can sit on its own weight for the first time in a long time. it won't sit at full ride height because there's still stuff off of it, but it should be, you know, should sit pretty good. I just got done checking all my weight jacks, front and rear, make sure they're all adjusted the same. I got a good starting point there. Yeah, so I think probably when I come back next time, I'll be doing all that other painting work. It's just way too cold out. The heat's having a hard time keeping up in here as far as that. So I got to paint all the interior, got to scuff all that up, paint the interior. That's all gonna be black. I got all new headliner, carpet, all those kind of things for the inside. I got to finish putting the sound deadening in. I'm waiting on that so that I'm trying to get done with everything I can think of on the inside, so I'm not crawling around, because that sound deadening I got, it's very lightweight, but it's not very durable. If you step on it, it likes to break. So so there's that. So finish that. I think that's about it. Belinda's about to walk in, and hope you liked it.